And we are now joined by Prasenjit K, Basu, senior economist, to help us understand this United States-India joint statement on the interim bilateral trade agreement. Welcome, sir, to the program. How significant is this interim trade agreement in the context of India-US economic relations? And what does this framework signal about the future of US-India comprehensive global strategic partnership?
Well, it's a welcome development. And in terms of the economic impact, I think it'll be very substantial. We are seeing a reduction in the effective tariff on most in US being cut to 18% from 50%. That is a huge improvement. And several of our exports to the US, like pharmaceutical exports, exports of smartphones, particularly Apple products, etc., continue to go in more or less duty-free into the US. So we are already continuing to gain market share in those areas. And now we'll be paying a much lower tariff than China. China is going to be paying around 33 or 34%. Vietnam, Bangladesh, etc., are paying 20%. Several other Asian countries, Indonesia, etc., are paying 19%. So we're paying a slightly lower tariff than our major competitors, a substantially lower tariff than China. So that will provide a very significant boost to India's exports to the US. The second factor is that over the past 2 or 3 months, we have reformed our own economy. We have introduced our new labor laws, which make the labor market much more flexible and ensure that labor-intensive exports from India become far more competitive. So those are some of the key economic benefits. We are going to, I think, see substantial economic benefits coming out of this lowering of tariff barriers. Now, at the same time, you also spoke about the strategic importance. I think over the past 7 or 8 months, we've seen the U.S. downplaying or almost ignoring the existence of the quadrilateral security dialogue mechanism, the Quad, which houses India, the US, Australia, and Japan in a quasi-strategic partnership or alliance. That partnership, I think, will now be revived, partly because the joint statement today also talks about the strategic dimension and the importance of India's additional defense purchases from the United States. So we, of course, have been diversifying our sources of defense exports. Russia remains our largest supplier, but France is a significant one. And now the US is increasingly trying to enter the picture and becoming the third pole for our defense imports. So I think that will strengthen the strategic relationship between the US and India. I think the Quad hopefully will be revived as a consequence over the next few months. We are supposed to host a Quad summit. It's already 4 or 5 months delayed. Hopefully, the end of the India-US tensions over trade will help to restore the old strategic ties and ensure that we get, the Quad is revived.
Okay, which Indian sectors are likely to benefit the most from this agreement once finalized? And are there any sectors that may face short-term challenges?
Well, the major sector that will benefit is labor-intensive manufactured exports. So textiles, garments, shoes, toys, leather products. They will benefit not only from the reduction in US tariffs, but also from the fact that the European Union will be cutting tariffs on all those lines to zero as soon as the India-EU FTA comes into force. So the textile and garment sector is set to benefit enormously. The area where there could be some pressure is things like wine. India has a burgeoning spirit sector with wine produced in the Nashik and elsewhere. There will certainly be some competition there now. because wine from the US will come in at much lower tariff rates. Uh, Other spirits too will see more competition. So that is probably the main area where enhanced competition will occur. I think in some of the agriculture areas where we are allowing US imports, things like tree nuts and so on, India isn't a major producer. There is some production coming out of places like Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, but fairly modest amounts, and it does not entirely meet our domestic demand. So the fact that we'll get additional supplies and perhaps cheaper supplies from the United States will not be too much of a burden on those producing those things in India.
Okay, and what about Indian goods? With the US applying an 18% reciprocal tariff on Indian goods, how competitive will Indian exports remain in the American market?
I think they'd be very competitive. Already, we were the 10th or 11th largest exporter, and actually even, I think, 9th largest exporter into the US prior to this. Now, even with the 50% tariff, our exports were holding up reasonably well. Now, with the tariff reduction to lower rates than being paid by China particularly, and also by Vietnam, etc., I think we're likely to see a very substantial increase in India's market share because we are highly competitive, and we've now done the labor market reforms that make labor-intensive manufacturing even more competitive than they used to be in the past. So I expect that we will gain substantial market share. Our share of US imports is close to 3%. I think over the next 2 or 3 years, that share within the next 2 or 3 years will rise to 4.5% or so.
Okay, so will zero tariffs on pharmaceuticals, gems, and aircraft parts meaningfully strengthen India's Make in India push?
Absolutely. I think particularly pharmaceuticals, gems and jewelry. Now, gems and jewelry is a sector that is facing some structural challenges, but within those constraints, we are the leading player in the world, and we will see good benefits from the reduction to zero tariffs. Pharmaceuticals have continued to benefit, and we'll see more of that. I think we'll see some American companies ramp up production in India, but our own generic drug manufacturers are doing well. And now, in addition, I think in the current year's budget, there is a substantial focus on biopharmaceuticals. So we want to also start focusing on drug discovery through the clinical trials. There are 1,000 centers for that being set up. So all of that will help over the medium term to provide certainty for a very important industry in India, the pharmaceutical sector, which is very competitive globally, but needs to diversify away from generics to also going into drug discovery. And that, I think, will be an area that we will see emerging and developing over the medium term, over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So the certainty provided by a stable India-US trade relationship is of great benefit there too.
Okay, and from Washington's perspective, what does the US gain most here? Market access, supply chain security, or a strategic partner to counter China?
All of that. Certainly now, a strategic partner to counter China is one aspect. I think the US-India relationship has suffered some grievous setbacks over the last 6 to 8 months. And this puts us back on an even keel. I don't think that the Quad will immediately get back into operation in full, but India will now look at the US again as the strategic partner that we had been looking towards for the last 25 years. So that is there. But in terms of what the US gains, apart from an improved strategic relationship with India, it gains some additional markets for its defense equipment, for its some of its agriculture products, very specific agriculture products like tree nuts, etc. That we have, and of course wine. Now, California wine is is less high end than, say, French wine. There'll be, I think all of these FTAs, the one with the UK, the one with the EU, they all are aiming to open up India to spirits imports. And so we'll probably see cheaper imports of globally branded wine, whiskey, etc., coming into India. And that is a benefit to our trading partner, in this case, the United States.
Okay. I'm sure it'll take some time to finalize the details of this interim agreement, but one looks forward to this bilateral trade agreement. Thank you very much, Prasenjit K. Basu, for joining us on DD India News.